Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Committee of Adjustments. This meeting is to consider applications for minor variances and consent held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. Please keep in mind that the intent of this process is to review the proposal that is before us, listen to the evidence, and then make a decision. This process is not intended to be used to resolve any concerns or disputes that may exist between the town, individuals, and organizations. If a request for a deferral is made and the committee grants such a request, the committee, after consultation with the Secretary-Treasurer, will set a new hearing date. No further notice will be provided unless there are changes to the application. In order to conduct an efficient and effective hearing, we have adopted the following process. The owner or authorized agent will be given the opportunity, if so desired, to briefly explain to us the basis of the application and answer any questions that may arise out of the hearing. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided for this presentation. You need to state your name and address for the record. Any materials submitted to the committee for viewing will remain in the property of the committee. Any submissions beyond 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. All persons attending the hearing who wish to support or oppose an application must also state their name and full address for the record. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to make a presentation. All remarks and questions are directed to the chairperson of the committee. Any submissions beyond those 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the committee. If there are several speakers sharing the same view, please select a spokesperson to present the group's opinion. We are happy to hear all the views that are presented before us. However, covering the same points will not advance your case. If the owner or agent will then will be provided for further 5 minutes to respond to comments made by any of the interested parties and answer any questions from the committee members. If the owner or agent has any concerns found in the staff reports, particularly with any proposed conditions, this will be the time and opportunity to advise us. The matter will then be taken into committee for a decision, and this will mark the end of all discussions. Once the committee makes an oral decision, any person desiring a copy must file with the Secretary-Treasurer at this meeting a written request for notice of the decision. A green sheet is provided for this purpose in the back of the room. Please note that you must make a written request in order to be included on the list that is used by the Ontario Municipal Board for the giving of any subsequent notice of any appeal. Written notice of the committee's decision will be mailed no later than 10 days for minor variances and 15 for consents applications. If the applicant, owner, agent, or any other person who has filed a written request for such a notice, if you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal for this decision with the Ontario Municipal Board. The last day to appeal the decision to the OMB will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the Secretary-Treasurer will notify the applicant through written correspondence. People attending the committee meeting are to be courteous and respectful to the members of the committee, to the town staff, as well as people in attendance tonight. We do appreciate if you do keep your cellular phones and pagers switched off, as they do interfere with our audio system. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed and available for future viewing on the town's live stream page at oakville.ca/live. Thank you. And with this, we'll kickstart our meeting. We do have regrets for this evening. Our Chairman Paul Cronus is unable to attend today. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I see none. Thank you. Requests for a deferral or withdrawal of any applications at this time. Is there anybody here who would like, Mr. Kieran, how are you?
Good evening, Madam Chairperson. My name is Joris Kieran, Kieran Design Inc. I'd like to request a deferral for application CAVA 018-2018 for 1065 Scott Avenue, please.
Thank you, Mr. Kieran. I'm assuming you're requesting the deferral to work with town staff, seeing that their comments were not supportive at this time.
Correct.
Thank you, sir. Members, are there any questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? Any comments? All those in support of a deferral? Sorry, I apologize. I will canvass the audience. I did forget to do that. Is there anyone here for application CAV 018 of 2018 at 1065 Scott Avenue? Okay, I see none, so there's nobody here. Then we can take this matter into committee. Motion to defer? Okay, Mr. Mark Charlebois has motion to defer. All those in support of the deferral? Okay, your application has been deferred. Thank you.
Thank
You'll
you.
see the Secretary Treasurer for an earlier date. Do you want to give him one or later? Okay,
We'll be in touch.
perfect. Is there anyone else who would like to request a deferral at this time? Okay, I see none. So with this, we will start our first meeting of the evening, and that is CAV 016-2018 at 5 Lambert Court. No, Lambert Common, sorry. Lambert Common.
Good evening. My name is Arlene Beaumont. I'm with Outred and Associates. We are the agents for the owner of 5 Lambert Common. We're here today to request 4 variances, one for garage area, one for garage projection, one for dwelling depth, and one for residential floor area. I will be very brief in my comments. There were some constraints on this particular property. It's right here with the shaded-in home, proposed home. We did have to maintain sight lines from this heritage dwelling up the street here to Lake Ontario. In addition, the lot is a rather irregular shape. So the architect ended up coming up with a somewhat irregular L-shaped dwelling proposal. This part of the dwelling is an indoor pool. It's one-story piece of the dwelling, which was an indoor pool. In terms of the garage area and garage projection, it is a 3-car garage. However, the architect has stepped back one of the doors to reduce the appearance of the massing of the garage. And in addition, with this piece here, the garage isn't going to be particularly stand out because it is such a wide home on the lot. The dwelling depth is actually measured in a somewhat peculiar way. It's from here to here, which is, and I'm not sure how zoning came up with measuring it that way, but we're measuring from this here to there. It is slightly over. The way I would have measured dwelling depth would be this way, and it's only 15 point something meters that way. But where the way that zoning is measuring it, it comes up to 23 point something. And then the floor area of the home is slightly over the bylaw permission.
Thank you for your submission. Are there any questions of the agent at this time? I see none. Is there anyone here in attendance for CAV 016 of 2018 at 5 Lambert Common? I see none. Committee members, are we prepared to take this matter into committee? Who would like to move a motion?
Madam Chair, having conducted my site visit and looked at the written application here as well as the town's staff report, also taking into account your presentation here this evening, and noting that that we have not received any comments from the public, I'm in agreement with the town's analysis on this particular application, and I'm prepared to put forward a motion to approve this variance, finding that it meets all 4 tests under the Planning Act, making it subject, just bear with me, subject to the condition that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the final approved site plan to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning, and making it also subject to the condition that this approval will expire 2 years from the date of this decision if the proposed development does not proceed or a building permit is not issued.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. Any discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? It's unanimous. The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is CAV 017 of 2018 at 435 Sumner Avenue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is David Capper with Glenn Schnarr and Associates. Our address is Suite 700 at 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Mississauga, Ontario, postal code L5R3K6.
Thank you, Mr. Capper. Let me just canvass the audience. Who is here in attendance for 017 of 2018 at 435 Sumner Avenue? Okay. Are you here in support or in opposition? Support. Thank you. The reason I ask is our procedural bylaw allows for us to forego with the presentations if there are no comments and questions from our committee members, and we can move straight into a proposed motion. So if you are here in support and you don't need any further clarifications, then we can move forward. Thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Capper at this moment?
Yeah, Madam Chair, actually, I am going to look for a presentation on this particular one, if you don't mind.
Okay, Mr. Capper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So just for the record, we've been retained by Alexandra Pekoski and Chris Carson, the owners of the subject property by way of a contractual agreement, which I believe has closed. Just would want to confirm that. With respect to the subject property, it's located at the southwest corner of Gloucester Avenue and Sumner Avenue. There's quite a bit of history on this particular property. It was before you on September 19th of last year under C of A 113-2017. The application that was before you sought greater variances, and it was recommended for approval by staff, and the decision of this committee was actually to approve that application. Subsequent to that approval, there was an appeal by Oakville Council. I believe the appeal was based on concerns that were raised by area residents. Our client acquired the property after the appeal had been launched, and they've come back to the town with a revised development proposal that seeks a different set of variances with a different building design. And our client has worked extensively with the town as well as area residents to come up with minutes of settlement for the appeal and the revised minor variance application. Those minutes of settlement were before council last night and were endorsed by council. And it's the intent that that should tonight's application be approved by the committee, that that the appeal will be withdrawn by the town based on the minutes of settlement. As I said, there has been extensive community consultation as part of the settlement, and the application that's before you this evening has received support from area residents as well as planning staff. So on that note, I'd like to talk very briefly about the application and the variances. There are 3 variances that are required. The first variance is to permit the driveway to be located closer to the corner of Gloucester and Sumner Avenue. Typically, the bylaw requires a 15-meter setback. In this case, we're seeking a variance to reduce that to 11.41 meters. That is the location of the existing driveway. So the intent of this application is to preserve the existing driveway and its location relative to that corner. In addition to that, there's a variance being sought for a reduced minimum flankage yard to 2.97 meters, where the bylaw requires 3.5 meters. The previous development application that was before you and approved by this committee actually had was actually reduced by 51 centimeters. And then lastly, there's a variance for maximum dwelling coverage. The bylaw permits a maximum of 19%, and the application before you seeks an increase to 25.5%. This is the proposed site plan, and what you'll see on this site plan is the existing building shaded in gray below, and then the proposed building in the dark black outline with the hatching, the vertical hatching. You'll see that the building the proposed building is very much contained almost within the building envelope, although different in shape. It's contained within the setbacks of the existing building, both along Sumner Avenue and along the northerly property line, as well as the easterly property line, and it is slightly shorter on the westerly property line. The building is larger in size, obviously, and there's additional coverage that is taken up in this area here as well as here. With respect to the building elevation, this is the proposed southerly elevation, the Sumner Avenue elevation. This, although it's a flankage yard by definition in the bylaw, it serves as the front yard for the dwelling. The dwelling has been designed so that it fronts onto Sumner. This is the Gloucester Avenue frontage. The north elevation, and then the rear elevation, which is the west. Concludes my presentation, other than to note very quickly that there are 2 letters of support. One is from Mr. John Canham, who you've seen quite frequently here at the committee. He did appear, as I understand it, on the original variance, as well as the neighbors to the north, the Powells. I'm happy to answer any questions, should you have any.
Certainly, each one of these variances are actually better, I guess, for lack of a better term, than the ones that were previously approved. That particular meeting was quite a contentious meeting. As you know, we had the town in support, quite a few residents against it. And I have to admit that throughout the course of, I came in initially on the sort of unsure about this one, I guess, to put it mildly. And then throughout the presentation began to be swayed. One of the things I just want to confirm again for the record, just to be sure, is we had a fair amount of, at the time, 18 or 19 residents that had lodged some form of support. You said you've met with them. How many meetings did you have with them?
Through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Charlebois, for clarification, I should say that my clients have met with some of the area residents. I have not been involved in those meetings. Those
Okay.
meetings have been hosted by the town. I believe they were attended by Ms. Mihalovich and Mr. Perlin from the legal department. I can't comment on how many people were in attendance, but certainly I'm sure Ms. Mihalovich can comment on that.
That's fine, but there were formal meetings, right?
Through you, Madam Chair, that's correct.
Okay, and I do note that we don't seem to have any further letters of objection. Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions of Mr. Capper at this time? See none. Are we prepared to move a motion? Would you be kind enough to come down and just provide us your name and address for the record, that you were here for the meeting and you were in support?
Are they the owners?
No, we'll find out now.
Madam Chairman, my name is Linda Powells. I'm here with my husband, Hugh Powells. We live adjacent to this property, and we were very familiar with all the 18 letters that came in. The previous owner of this property never spoke to us, never spoke to any of the neighbors about the application. First one was 34%, the next one was 29.85. These new owners have met with my husband and I. They've taken consideration into their design for what we would like, and we're very, very happy, and none of our neighbors are upset. That's why they're not here. They're all in favor of this application.
Very well. Thank you
And
very much for your
178,
submission.
we're from 178 Gloucester.
Yes.
Yes,
we
Linda
have
and Hugh
it.
Powells.
Perfect. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. We appreciate your submission. Okay. Gentlemen. Mr. Talowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A circuitous route, but all's well that ends well. Always happy to see the applicant get the residents on side. Obviously, the committee supported the previous application. Hopefully, this one will be a smoother road going forward. Madam Chair, I'm happy to move that the application be approved as applied for. Finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and again, we'll note the significant change from the previous application of a significant number of residents in opposition to letters of support at today's meeting. And I would make that approval subject to development proceeding in general accordance with the drawings provided, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Chalowski. Is there a discussion on these recommendations? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Kapler. Your application has been approved.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to call CAV 019 of 2018 at 72 First Street.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Bill Hicks with Hicks Design Studios, 295 Robinson Street, acting on behalf of Mr. and Mrs. Barr, the owners of 72 Front Street,
Good evening, Mr. Hicks. Thank you.
or First Street, sorry, not Front Street.
I'll quickly canvass the room. Is there any here in attendance for CAV 019 of 2018 at 72 Street, First Street? I I see none. Mr. Hicks, the floor is yours if you have additional comments. If not, I'll turn it on off to my colleagues to see if they have any questions. And
I think a very straightforward application. It's remove a garage, build a new garage, but build a basement underneath. So now it's attached to the house by a tunnel, so it has to follow, even though it is appearance is a accessory structure, it has to meet the requirements of the full residential dwelling. Really, I'm happy to answer any questions. We think it's gone to Heritage. It seems to be supported by Heritage. Planning certainly understands the application and is supportive. So.
thank you, sir. And we do note that we do have letters of support here that have been submitted. Are there any
Yes.
questions of Mr. Hicks at this time? Are we prepared to take this matter into committee? Okay, Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed the materials, including the staff report, and undertaken my site visit, I'm satisfied that the requested variances conform to the four tests of the Act, and I'll put forward a motion of approval, subject to two conditions. The first being that the proposed attached garage be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated December 20th, 2017, as submitted. And the second being that the approval will expire within 2 years if a building permit has not been issued or the development does not proceed.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on these recommendations? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved.
Thank you, Madam
Thank you,
Chair and
Mr.
members.
Okay, the next application on our agenda tonight is 020 of 2018 at 229 Poplar Drive. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Laura Simeone of Unity Design, and I'm the authorized agent on behalf of the owners of this property, 229 Poplar Drive. And what we are requesting is to increase the floor area, lot area ratio from 29% to 30%.
Yes, and the second story addition, and the staff are in support of your application. Are there any questions? Oh, before I do that, who's here in attendance for CAV 020 of 2018 at 229 Poplar Drive? I see none, thank you. Members, I'm in your hands. Would you wish a presentation, or you're happy to move forward with the recommendation? Okay. If there are no questions and you have nothing further to add, we can take this matter into committee right away.
That's fine. That would be great.
Okay, thank you. Who's ready to move a motion? Mr. Charlebois, thank you.
Madam Chair, again, having conducted my site visit and reviewed the applicant's application as well as the staff report, I find that this is a fairly straightforward variance. I'm going to recommend approval of the variance, finding that it does meet the four tests under the Planning Act, making it subject to a couple of conditions here, that the proposed addition be constructed in general accordance with the plans dated January 2018 is submitted, that a tree inventory and preservation plan be submitted to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and that this approval is subject to the condition that it will expire 2 years from the date of this decision if the proposed development does not proceed or a building permit is not issued.
Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? Okay, yes, and we'll also note that there are no oral or written submissions with this application.
That is correct. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Application has been approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay, the next application on our agenda is 021 of 2018 at 443 Avon Crescent. Good evening. Who is here in attendance for CAV 021 of 2018 at 443 Avon Crescent? Okay, I see none. Sir, the town is in support of 2 of your 3 variances. They're in support of variance 1 and 2 and in opposition of variance number 3. We do note that you do have some letters of support. We'll have you complete your presentation and then we'll take the matter with questions and into committee.
Thank
Go
you,
ahead.
Madam Chair. For the record, my name is TJ Sakura. I am a registered professional planner and principal with Design Plan Services Incorporated, here on behalf of the owners of 443 Avon. Noting your comment about the staff support, the first thing I'm going to do is amend our application, or request that the application be amended. We would like to delete variance number 3. I have a set of revised plans here. I have 7 sets of revised plans here that I will pass up to the committee. The balcony to which that variance applied has been deleted from these plans. And there's one other change that I will also note for the committee.
Okay. Have you spoken about these changes with Ms. Mihalovic? Or is this the first time that she'll be seeing those plans as well?
I believe this is the first time she'll be seeing these plans as well. They were just made, finalized earlier today. And there's one other change we also made. So first of all,
Okay, I'll just give them a second to take their drawings and follow you. Depends how big that change is.
well, we're deleting a variance and addressing the comments from staff.
Okay.
So I believe that that should be appropriate for the committee to deal with this evening. And the other thing that I would like to note, and I've highlighted it on the plan here on the screen, is one of the conditions that was requested by staff was that revised drawings be submitted to show a driveway that doesn't interfere with the tree in the front yard. Now, I just would like to note that this doesn't have anything to do with the variances for residential floor area or for coverage. However, the owner has taken that to heart, made those changes to the plan. What you can see, this highlighted area is area that was proposed driveway that is now not proposed to be there. The line of the driveway, and I'm going to highlight it a little more here for you. So this line now is where the existing driveway is today. So that is not proposed to be changed on the east side of the driveway. The west side of the driveway will be slightly different than the existing driveway, but not very different, just to line up with the garage. So I would submit to you, Madam Chair, that that change doesn't have anything to do with the variances. However, it does address a comment made by staff in the report. So the variances that are in front of you now are just variance 1 and 2, which do have staff support. Also, the 3 letters that were submitted by the public in support were actually made on the original application with the balcony in place. So my submission is that this application has become more straightforward, and if they supported that one, this one should be supportable. Just a few notes about the variances themselves. The residential floor area, the variance is triggered by the fact that there's a ravine at the rear and a natural feature zoning at the rear of the property. Therefore, the whole property cannot be used in the calculation of residential floor area. If the whole lot was used, the residential floor area would comply with the zoning bylaw, and it would be at 37%. Same thing for the coverage. If the whole lot was able to be used in the calculation, the coverage would be 22.6%, which would be below the 25% permitted. I would note that we did some research on other variances and what's been occurring in this neighborhood. We found 2 similar applications at 479 Avon, which received a residential floor area percentage of 60.91, well in excess of the proposed in this application, and a coverage of 43.23%, and 413 Avon, which received a coverage of 26.43% and a RFA of 68.15%, both well in excess of what's proposed through the subject application. So it is my submission that these variances meet the tests of the Planning Act. They are supported by the area residents, and the revisions directly address the concerns of staff, and that this application should be approved. And I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Gentlemen, are there any questions at this moment of the agent?
guess the only question I have is for planning.
Okay.
Are you prepared to okay these plans?
Through you, Madam Chair, to the committee, the applicant had gotten in touch with me after the comments had been released on Friday afternoon, and we'd had these discussions regarding the elimination of the balcony and the removal of variance 3, as well as our concern with respect to maintaining the existing driveway and its proximity to that tree. So I am satisfied to see these revised plans and would be prepared to support a revised condition that would acknowledge the plans as submitted this evening, should the committee choose to approve. I would like to clarify, however, that the notations the applicants provided you with similar examples of increases in floor area and lot coverage on Avon should be considered on an individual basis, that those numbers are not precedent setting, as those particular properties were affected differently with the natural area and stable top of banks on their property. So this application has been assessed on the merits of this property, not in consideration of what other properties have been affected by in the past.
Okay, thank you for that. And one last question, if you don't mind. You had recommended a condition that this would be subject to protecting the existing trees to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. So I guess my follow-up question is, are you prepared to drop that condition in favor of these new drawings, or would you like to just see that left in?
Through you, Madam Chair, we would be prepared to drop this condition in favor of the plans as submitted to you this evening, should it be approved.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? I see none. If you have nothing further to add, then we can take this matter into committee.
That's all. Thank you.
Gentlemen, who's prepared to move a motion? Mr. Talowski, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Due to the split zoning nature of this lot, I do find that these variances are quite technical in nature, and would be prepared to move approval of the application as revised tonight, with the removal of variance number 3. I would make that approval subject to 3 conditions. One, that the development proceed in general accordance with the drawings provided to the committee this evening, but with one exception, Mr. Secura, the site plan you provided still shows the limit of balcony on the drawing. So I would make it subject to the applicant replacing the site plan to remove the reference to the balcony. And thirdly, that development proceed to a building permit within 2 years.
That's fine. And I apologize, that notation may not have been removed, but it is fully the intention not to have that balcony there.
Okay. Is there a discussion on these recommendations? I see none. All those in support? Yes. When is the earliest that you can bring down the revised drawings to the Secretary Treasurer?
They can be emailed tomorrow morning.
Okay, very well.
Okay.
Okay, your application has been approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Application CAV 022 of 2018 at 233 Forest Drive. Mr. Capper again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is David Capper with Glenn Schnarr & Associates. Our mailing address is Suite 700 at 10 Kingsbridge Garden Circle, Mississauga, Ontario, L5R 3K6. And we're here this evening on behalf of the property owners, Mr. Zhang, G. Zhang.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone here for CAV 022 of 2018 at 233 Forest Drive? Okay, I see none. I will note that town staff is in support of the application, and we do have some letters of opposition. Yes, Mr. Capper.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I could make a very short presentation regarding some building material changes that the applicant is seeking,
Sure,
and to provide the committee with updated drawings that reflect that those design changes.
Very well, go ahead, Mr.
So I
Capper.
have 5 copies of a revised set of drawings that I can provide to the committee, as well as copy of the presentations that I've forwarded this evening, and if it's amenable to the committee, I'd just like to fast forward through my drawings. So the main change is with respect to the front facade, and it relates to the cladding material that's being chosen, as well as the windows, the design of the windows. And although I'm almost certain that this could be passed through zoning, I'd like to, for the record, the revised drawings to reflect these changes, and I have them highlighted. This is the front elevation, and I'll go through the changes just towards the end, sorry. The rear elevation, where there's no change. The west elevation, where the only change is with respect to this area over here. And then again, the east elevation, where there's a minor change in this facade here. This was my tree preservation plan that I was going to show, should there be the need. And these are the changes here. On the left side of the screen, this is the front elevation that has been submitted. The main difference between this is the cladding material along the front of the building, which has moved from a stucco material to a stone type facade material. In addition, the windows have been changed so that they are no longer rounded arches at the top. They are actually square windows in the proposed elevation. And there's elimination of the round window here, replaced with a rectangular window, as well as the rounded design features within the roof line. And the dormers have been changed so that they're peaked dormers, just to be consistent amongst the two main dormers of the house. And then the other minor change is with respect to the garage door. There's a change to this one here. And just in plan view, there's a slight 1 foot offset, which has been aligned so that the two doors are basically aligned with each other. That offset has been eliminated. The revisions have no effect whatsoever on the requested variance. However, in the interest of making sure that the approval is in accordance with the drawings, I wanted to provide these updated drawings. The revisions are driven by client changes, unfortunately, at the last minute.
What prompted these revisions?
Through you, Madam Chair, the client doesn't like the round design of the windows, so they've opted for a square change. A square window.
But these are not the drawings that have been circulated. Do you see any negative impact in terms of the? Do we have any comments from planning on the matter?
Through you, Madam Chair, these designs are completely aesthetic to the property. We don't have any authority to comment on the architectural style or the materials used. In my view, the massing of the structure is completely the same. The effect of these changes don't affect the variances that have been requested for. So in my view, we would not have any problems with what's been submitted as revisions. In fact, if they had come at a later date through the building permit process, we would have been consulted, and I would be submitting the same response to them. This maintains it in a general accordance with, in my view.
I just have a question in the sense that how does it affect the general notice that was given and the plans that were delivered to the public?
Again, through you, Madam Chair, the variance is for a request for an increase in residential floor area. Residential floor area does not include any calculation with respect to garage floor area. And then again, as Kate mentioned, architectural design is not controlled by the town, at least not through the zoning bylaw. So these windows could go through the process, could get done through a zoning review, and there would be no comment. However, there is a very slight chance that the zoning officer could say that the design, the facade is different than what was submitted. And in an abundance of caution, I'd rather have these drawings in front of you for approval.
Just to clarify, I guess we're more concerned about the public because we do have people, that's not the drawings I saw. Certainly when drawings come in and there's a change, it does go through the zoning officer and at their discretion whether they're going to accept the change or not, whether they're saying it's in general accordance. So I guess the committee's going to have to decide whether they think these changes are minor or not, or whether the public should be informed of these new changes. And again, when you go through a minor variance, I believe planning does get a comment on the architectural, on the massing. So as soon as you make it a public process, planning would have I know, and they've stated they don't have an issue, but there would have been still a process.
Through you, Madam Chair, the zoning bylaw does not regulate type of window. The zoning bylaw does not regulate architectural
And
design.
I understand, no, and I agree with you 100%. My concern is that what the public saw is not what is going to be the end result. And usually within this public forum, there should be a notice of changes at that level, correct?
Correct. And through you, Madam Chair, that notice went out. And as you can see, there's no one here with respect to the variance that is being requested, that's before you this evening. There's no one here in objection to that variance. I would say if the committee is inclined to not approve the variance for increased residential floor area on the basis of a revised cladding and window treatment, then it would be my preference that the original submitted drawings be approved. I would prefer that the application move forward. My client will not be happy with the design features that, the design revisions, and the fact that they don't get to do that.
But if we do approve the application based on the already submitted designs, that does not stop you from going through the proper channels and changing the style according to what your client wants, correct?
Yes, and I would acknowledge that there's a slight risk that the zoning officer might say the drawings are different than what was presented at the committee, and there's the standard condition that you impose, that the drawings are in substantial accordance with what was approved at the committee. There is the slight chance that the zoning officer might disagree with general accordance.
I understand.
And that's my concern, and that's why
You can't have it both ways. You can't say that the zoning would say that the change would be substantial, but not let the public know. So if it gets approved tonight and then you submit your new drawings, absolutely, then it would be the zoning officer's call whether these are in general accordance or not.
I'd like to hear from my colleagues, what are your thoughts on this, this point of the discussion?
You know, it actually brings up one question I've been meaning to ask too before when we do get these drawings submitted, and no reflection on what you're going to do here. But if the drawings, you know, where our attention is usually drawn to one thing, for example, in like the last one, the balcony, what if there were changes that weren't brought to our attention, and in fact the building was, you know, had been made slightly larger or deeper or whatever, and it's just too hard for us to tell in 30 seconds. What would happen if we approved the new drawings without having had the benefit of the town's experts going through and saying, yeah, everything fits?
Through you, Madam Chair, the committee, they have to come back in front of you because the variance has been altered. So if this committee approved a revised set of plans without the knowledge of it of what implications would have on the actual variance requested, and while the plans may work, but the variance isn't proper, they would have to come back to this committee. If this committee recalls, a few months back, there was a gentleman who'd come in with a change to his garage size and needed a small front yard projection. And he had to come back to this committee because the plans reflected the correct projection, but the variance was about 10 centimeters short, and he had to come back. So that is always going to be the case. It is at the zoning officer's discretion, and frankly, in consultation with planning staff, to understand what are the massing or scale changes to a structure to determine whether or not it's in general accordance. In my view, looking at these plans this evening, the change in windows and the garage doors do not change the massing and scale of this structure, nor does the facade treatment from a stucco to a stone-style facade. We would be looking at the roof pitches, we're looking at the second-story elevations, we're looking at all of those dimensions. Those have all remained the same. There's no change to the variance requested. So in my view, if you chose to pursue the application as originally submitted and the applicant chooses to submit a revision through the building permit process, the zoning examiner and myself together would assess it, and I'm giving you the same opinion I would give the zoning examiner, that it is still in general accordance, it wouldn't come back to this committee.
Through you, Madam Chair, if I might make one other comment. Under Section 45(2) of the Planning Act, you as the committee do have the power to to pass a motion this evening deeming any revision to the application to be minor in nature and not requiring further notification to the public. You have that power under Section 45 of the Planning Act. I would suggest to you that it's my professional opinion, and it appears to be echoed by the planner here at the town, that the revisions that are before you this evening are minor in nature. And I would respectfully request that you exercise that power under the Planning Act to provide no further notice be required with respect to the revised elevations that are before you.
Okay. Discussion? Any further discussion? Okay. I'm satisfied. This is all on record anyways, so I'm satisfied with your submissions. I do recognize that the cladding and the aesthetic changes are not affecting the application as set before us in terms of the residential floor area variance. With respect to the these changes. So if there aren't any comments or discussions on any further discussion, be happy to entertain a motion. Mr. Hardcastle?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, I'm satisfied that the revised drawings do not materially change my assessment with respect to the conformance of the variances to the four tests of the Act. It's not germane to my evaluation. I think they're relatively administrative in nature. So I'll put forward a motion of approval, subject to acknowledging that the requested variance conforms to the four tests of the Act. And I will put forward, noting that there was one comment with respect to tree preservation on the site, and I'm satisfied that the building placement is not significantly going to impact the general character with respect to the treed nature of the site. So I'll put forward that motion subject to two conditions. The first being that the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the revised plans, and I believe that the revision date is February 7th, 2018. And that the approval expire within 2 years if a building permit has not been issued or the development has not proceeded.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? Mr. Charlebois.
Just for the record there, Mr. Capper, although, as you duly noted, the Committee of Adjustment can make those changes, submitting drawings at the last moment and doing these things just puts a slight burden on us to try and figure out whether we're doing the right thing. It's not that we don't want to do the right thing. It's not that we don't want to help your client, because, quite frankly, we're not even talking about the variance. The variance seems to be fine. It's just making sure that we're hitting all the right stakeholders and making sure that when we finally say yes, because that becomes the yes, that in fact we've made sure that we took into account each of the rights, desires, wants, needs of the various stakeholders. So that's the case. So it is a discretionary thing, and it's not a mandatory thing for us to accept drawings, and we have rejected them in the past. But having said that, I agree with you, and I'm gonna support this too.
Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. Any further discussion? I see none. Who would like to move a motion? Oh, sorry, John. What two conditions? He was discussing your support. I appreciate that. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved. Thank you, Mr. Capper.
Thank you very much.
We are moving on to application 023 of 2018 at 428 Sanford Place. Is there anyone here in attendance for CAV 428 Sanford Place? I see none. You are the agent. Go ahead, sir. Your name and address for the record.
Sean Anand, 2250 Chancery Lane West, Oakville, Ontario.
Thank you. So this matter is currently under appeal, correct?
That's correct, Madam Chair.
And if if this application does get approved this evening, and I do note that the staff is in support of your application, you do have letters of support on record, yeah, there's letters of support. Yeah, that's what I have. Do I have something else? Sorry, that must be my mistake. Will you go ahead and provide us with your presentation for the changes and where we are at this moment, and then we'll take this matter into committee.
Just a brief history on this case, Madam Chair. I was here in front of the committee back in December, I believe December the 4th, and we were asking for a slightly higher variance in the residential floor area than what we are asking for today, which this committee had approved at that time. But subsequently, the staff and the council had appealed it, and subsequent to that, we had meetings with the staff as well as the legal department, and we have come to an agreement, and everybody seems to be happy with a slightly lower residential floor area, and that's the reason why we are in front of you again. So in this new scenario, we have moved the house back by 1 meter. We also have moved the second floor slightly. We pared it back so that the massing does not take place, and we also reduced the second floor area as per our discussions. So now we are looking for 44.94% as opposed to, which was a higher number last time around.
Are there any questions of Mr. Anand at this time? I see none. Sir, if you have nothing further to add, we can take this matter into committee and render a decision.
That's correct, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, sir. Gentlemen, Mr. Talowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I move the initial approval of this application, so I'll be happy to move approval of the revised application. Again, happy to see that it's found favor with all parties at this point in time. Madam Chair, I find the current application to meet the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I note that there's no opposition from the community. Would make the approval subject to development proceeding in general accordance with the drawings provided, and that a building permit issue within 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, your application has been approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The next application is 024 of 2018 at 192 Chalmers Street. Good evening. Is there anyone here I know the audience is dwindling, but I still have to canvass. I apologize. Is anyone here for 428 Sanford Place, application CAV? We're at 192 Chalmers. Sorry. Yes, I read that one. CAV 024 of 2018 at 192 Chalmers Street? I see none. Gentlemen, I notice we have letters of support here. The town is in support of your application. We've done our site visits and we've read the staff report. Is there anything further that you'd like to add or bring to the discussion before we do take this matter into committee?
I think it is pretty straightforward, and yes, we do have 8 signatures in support, so I don't see any issue.
Sorry.
The homeowner
Can I get your name and record
sorry.
on your address for Madam Secretary? We'd like to keep her happy.
Yes, I am Mark DeBoer. And
Thank you.
do you need my address as well? Okay.
Okay.
And I'm here with the homeowner, Mark Kotzel.
Okay, perfect. So the owner is here as well. I apologize for interrupting you. You do have 8, yes, 8 letters of support, signatures. We have them here on record. Sorry, you were saying?
Yes, just the homeowner is looking to stay in his house. He's got a growing family, and we're just looking to give him a little extra space. The property is known as Block 3, and we're looking to get an additional 12 square meter over what is permitted, so it's quite minor.
Perfect. Thank you for your submission, sir. Are there any questions of Mr. DeBoer at this time? If there are no questions or clarifications, if you have nothing further to add, we can take the matter into committee. Gentlemen, this is a 2-story rear addition to the existing dwelling. In your hands. Mr. Hardcastle, thank you.
Madam Chair, having reviewed the submissions and undertaken a site visit, this modest addition to an existing home in this area, I find it to be supportable. I note that there are a number of signatures, 8 I believe it is, in support of the application, so I'll move forward with put a motion of approval subject to 2 conditions. The first being that the proposed additions be constructed in general accordance with the plans as submitted, and the second being that the approval will expire within 2 years if a building permit has not been issued or the development has not proceeded.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Your application has been approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our last application of the evening is at 29 Hamlet Common. It's CAV 115 of 2017, deferred from June 27th of 2017. Good evening.
Good evening again. Arlene Beaumont, Outred and Associates. We are the agents for the owners of 29 Hamlet Garden, Coordination Gardens. The application has been deferred for several months to allow time for a significant redesign of the dwelling. The variances, the extent of both the variances have been reduced considerably since June. In terms of lot coverage, we're now only over by 0.76%, and the floor area ratio has been reduced to 45.75%. 43% is permitted. In June, we were requesting 70%. So we've done significant work on this proposal. I believe that we have positive planning comments. That planning has supported the new design, and we are aware of the conditions, and there's no problem with those.
Appreciate your submission. Are there any questions of the agent at this time? Mr. Charlebois?
Actually, just a question of clarification with planning, if you don't mind. I'm in support of the application, and I've done some consultation on this, but just for the purposes of the record, just so that I'm clear on this, this decision was a result of an OMB decision, and I just wanted to be sure that in your opinion, the Committee of Adjustment can amend an OMB's decision on this at the request of a town.
Through you, Madam Chair, to the committee, it's my view that the committee does have the authority to submit variances to the zoning bylaw, regardless of whether it was provided by an authority of council or an authority of the Ontario Municipal Board, which is what you have in front of you. The history with respect to understanding the intent of the zoning bylaw, site-specific for this property, was instrumental in understanding what would be considered an appropriate variance for this particular lot. So staff have provided our comments with the knowledge of that history, understanding how the board was able to support the settlement for this particular development at that time, and and staff have reviewed this revised application in light of that and understand that these variances do meet the 4 tests on that basis.
Okay, that substantiates what I was told too, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Charlebois. Any further questions or clarifications? Are we prepared to take this matter into committee? If you have no further comments, we're happy to take this matter into committee. Thank you. Mr. Charlebois.
Sure, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit, reviewed the documentation in here as well as the written staff, or the town's written staff report, and noting that there are no comments from the public, I find that this particular application does meet the 4 tests under the Planning Act. I recommend approval, subject to the condition the proposed dwelling be constructed in general accordance with the plans as submitted, and further subject to the condition the approval will expire 2 years from this date if the proposed development does not proceed or a building permit is not issued.
Very well. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you. Your application has been approved.
Thank you.
We have minutes from January 30th. Were we all here?
I don't know. It's the last meeting.
I was here. January 30th. We were here. I was here. Who's going to move a motion? Mr. Hardcastle is moving the minutes. Adjournment? He beat you to it, Mr. Hardcastle. We're adjourned at 8:02. All right. Thank you.